Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Mike Nelson. I'm a tech evangelist with Pure Storage. And I know this is lunchtime, so thank you for joining me. And this is, we're going to talk about GitHub for newbies in 12 minutes, believe it or not. I'm going to see if this is actually going to work. So, does anybody know what this is? Oh, wait, what is it? Octocat? Yeah, if you know that, you shouldn't even be here. Okay. Now, it's actually, what is Octocat though? What is it? It's a cat and an octopus, right? Yeah, that's the original logo for GitHub. So if you know what this is, then you don't need to be here. But this is actually taken from a Canadian animated TV show. That's how they actually came up with this this logo. I mean the mascot. All right. There we go. So can we do this in 12 minutes? Absolutely not. There's no way you can learn GitHub and Git in 12 minutes, but I'm going to try my best. I really am. So extra credit to anybody who knows what movie this is from. What's that? The Fifth Element. Excellent. Awesome, dude. That's right. That's great. Trying to consume all this information in 12 minutes, good luck to you. So GitHub, what is it? GitHub is really a code hosting platform for version control and collaboration. Basically, it's a really great place to put your code and to share your code with other people, right? It lets you and others work together on projects from anywhere, all right? Is it free? Absolutely, yes, it's free. Do you want to use other services that are premium, like Copilot and things like that? Well, then you got to pay, right? But the core of it is absolutely free, which is really cool. And who owns GitHub now? Microsoft, that's right. So, they want your money eventually. Okay, so at the core of GitHub is something called Git, all right? I'm not going to ask this question because I don't think anybody knows where the actual term Git came from, but if you do, that's awesome, because Git is actually a British slang for an unpleasant person. That's kind of weird, right? Well, the person who created this whole thing actually did it because he feels that he names projects after himself, and he thinks he's an unpleasant person. So that's why he called it Git. And there are a couple of different variations that have come out since then of what Git really means, but that's basically how it came about. But Git is the version control system, VCS, if you're not familiar with that acronym is, that behind GitHub. So you have GitHub, which is a portal UI, and you have Git, which is a command line. It's API fast, and it's built into IDEs. IDEs are the integrated development environments, right? An IDE could be VS Code. It could be Visual Studio. It could be, Sublime. It could be, and just about you name it. You can have it as an IDE. But Git is built in as a version control. Now, it works specifically for GitHub. It does work with other version control systems, but it was made for GitHub. Okay, do you need to learn it? Not really, okay? If you're going to use the portal, you really don't need to know Git, okay? It takes care of everything for you, from the version control, everything, the commits, the merges, stuff like that. You don't need to know Git. If you want to get into the meat and potatoes of it and understand how you can do everything from the command line, then yes, you need to learn Git, okay? The GitHub, if you think about it, GitHub portal kind of like abstracts that away from you, all right? And it makes it easier to use. So the important stuff, repositories. I'm going to go through these now. The repositories is a place for code. That's what they call a repo, all right? When you take a look at forks, forks is, you think your fork, you're taking a fork and you're eating something. Well, basically a fork is when you make your own copy of existing code. So say somebody or a vendor has code up there, you can click on fork, which is an option in the UI, and you can make your own copy in your own repository, in your own little space, and you can work with it there. Issues, exactly what it says. Bugs, enhancements, questions, you name it. That's an issue to you, and it's an issue to the developer, then that's where these get put. Where these get put. Pull request, or otherwise short name PRs. Pull request is where I say I want to add my code to your project, or I want to modify the code in this project. I'm going to do a pull request, okay, to the original project and say, yeah, I want to add it. This is what I want to add and why I want to add it, or why I want to change it, or why I want to delete it, or whatever I want to do. All right, that's called a PR. And from a PR, you get things called merges and commits. All right, so when a PR goes through and says, I want to add my code to your project because I think it's awesome and I want to add my stuff, you can actually do that, and then what the author does, or one of the author delegates, will do what's called a merge. They'll take your code and they'll merge it with their original code. And they'll be like, yeah, now this person's stuff is in there, and we've added this functionality, or we fixed this bug, or we did something. Okay? And when they do the merge, they merge it together, they have to commit it. That means they're putting it down and they're saying, okay, this is a release. This is it, final, boom, we're committing, right? But commits are reversible. So if you had to, you can always reverse it. Everything in GitHub is pretty much reversible, except deleting, things. If you delete a repository, you can't reverse that. Delete your username, you can't reverse that. But in code, it's always reversible. Branches. There's safe containers to test code before moving to prod. Think of it as test dev into prod. Okay? A branch would be called test dev. A prod branch would be called main. Okay, and you'd be able to move things from test dev into main. Pretty simple. And then permissions. You have granular permissions on the repository and on different things that you can do inside of GitHub that allow you to tell, a helper what they're able to do. If they're able to write, read, all that kind of fun stuff. All right. So there are a couple tools that you can use to work directly with GitHub. We have the Git, which is a CLI we talked about. We have the GitHub desktop. You can download a tool called GitHub Desktop, and that allows you to actually use it locally on your machine, where you can interact with GitHub without having to use the portal. Your favorite IDE, Visual Studio Code. Git's got, I don't know, probably half a dozen plus, probably a dozen plus of different things you can do inside of Git. Your favorite SDK, if you use PowerShell, if you use Python, you use Ansible, you use Terraform, whatever you use, Go, Ruby, they all have integrations into Git, all right? They've all been modeled that way. And then you always have the UI to fall back on. So let's take a look at that. This is where I am. This is where you actually, when you sign up for a new account, you're going to be inside of GitHub. This is kind of the layout you get, kind of the dashboard, if you will, view of it. All right, so I'm going to be moving around. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up into that user area. The user area is where you can set all of your settings, feature previews, all that kind of stuff, your email, account, all that kind of fun stuff, right? All the housekeeping stuff, if you will. So it even tells you if you want GitHub free or if you want to set up a plan, a payment, so on and so forth. This is where you can, all the different things that you can do for your profile. So we're going to go back. You always remember you can hit Octocat to go back, all right? So once you're in here, you can try Copilot. I encourage everyone to try Copilot. You can change, add features that they have available, all that kind of fun stuff. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go in and we're going to create a repository. That's the first thing you want to do is create a repository. We're going to go in there and you can name it anything you like, okay? And as long as it's not used within the same repository or within the same account, all right? So you can name it whatever you like. This is demo code. You can make it public. You can make it private. You can add a README file. Kind of helps you understand, gives you a documentation about what it's doing. And you can choose a license like Apache or whatever. Use something called gitignore, which ignores files, specific files that you point out. I don't want anybody to know about these files. And then we actually go in and take a look at the different things you can do. You have the code, you have issues like I talked about, the PRs. You have actions, which I won't get into, I don't have time. It's called GitHub Actions. Projects, wiki, security, insights, all that kind of fun stuff. So it gives you a complete environment that you can collaborate on with code. All right, it's actually pretty cool. When you get into actual settings, insights, you can see a lot of stuff about that. When you get into settings, that's where that's all set, right? So you can say, I want issues. I don't want wikis. I want to preserve. I want to add discussions, okay? If I add discussions, I go up to the top. Look, now I've got discussions. All right, so you can have conversations with the people that are contributing code. Okay? From this point, we're going to take a look at the code. You have these files right here, a license file and a README file. I can actually go in and I can edit that directly inside of the UI. So that little pencil or pen, I can actually go in and I can edit this file. So if I go in and edit this file, add it, I go up there and I say commit change. All right? So if I commit the change, that's saying, hey, okay, commit the change, tell me why you did it, what the description is, and whether or not you want to put it into the prod branch or some other branch. All right? Once you do that, you can actually see if I go up here and refresh and look at the code, you can see it added, it took that, all right? So why was I able to do that without doing a pull request and all that? Because I'm the owner, and I can do that. I can add it directly. I'm an admin on this, right? If you're not an admin, you have to go through the whole thing of doing a PR. If I want to add a new branch, I'm going to go out and add a new branch, call it demo, create a new branch, simple as that. Now I can have my code in another container that doesn't affect prod. So I can do whatever I want without affecting prod. All right? And go, okay. So this is pretty much it, what I can get through. If you ever want to download something from a repo, you can create a new file, upload files, but that little code button there, if I could speed this up, I would. That little code button, you can actually tell it, I want to open it in GitHub Desktop, or I want to download it as a zip file. Okay, so you can download that entire code right to your local machine and use it however you like, if the owner allows you to do that. Okay, those are the permissions on the repo. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm out of time, and if you have any questions, I'll be right over there.